All right, grade 5, we are going to continue with our patterns unit. Our big idea, remember, is describing patterns in tables and in rules can help us to solve problems and describe the world. Today, we're looking at analyzing a pattern to tell what the rule is and then using that rule to solve the problem. Now, most of this information is more of the table kind of information as opposed to the list of patterns. So remember we looked at both types last day? Well, today we're talking more about table kind of patterns. All right, so let's look at a couple of example questions here. We have one puzzle book that costs $17. How much would it cost if you bought 2 books, or 3 books, or 4 books? So each time you add a book, you are adding a group of 17. So you could communicate this in this table. Number of books on one side, the cost on the other. For 1 book, $17. 2 books is going to be 17 2 times, which is $34. 3 books is going to be 17 3 times, which is $51. So really what you're doing here is you're multiplying by 17 would be our rule, because that's what we're doing each time. We could then use this to help us figure out how much it would be for example, 20 books. If we had 20 books, we would multiply that by 17 to get our answer. We could, of course, also go 17, add another 17, add another 17, add another 17, and so on, but that would take an awful long period of time. 20 times 17, which would be 340. So remember, we can look at this pattern 2 ways. We can start at 17 and add 17 each time for our costs, but that always takes us quite a bit longer if we have to do that 20 times. Or we could look at the number of books and go across the T table and realize that we would be multiplying by 17, which is more effective. Definitely remember, feel free to use your calculator. Just remember to write down what it is that you've done as your evidence, seeking to be understood so that I know that you understand the concept. All right, let's take a look at another one, or a continuation of that one. Suppose you had suppose you have $200, not about. Suppose you have $200. Can you buy puzzle books and have no money left over? Extend the pattern to see if 200 is a term. Use a calculator. And this is where you would continue probably to add 17. And if you're doing this in your calculator, a handy way to do this when you're doing this with patterns is go 17 plus 17, and then every time you hit equals, it will give you the next number. Just a little calculator trick to assist you with your work. All right, so if I punch in my 17 and 17, 17 plus 17, I would get 34. Next I would get 51. Next I would get 68. Next I would get 85. Next I would get 102, then 119, and so on. And I would keep going until I get into my 200s. And I notice I go from 187 to 204. And those are what we consider consecutive terms, one number that follows another number. And so there's not going to be anything in between, so we know that you cannot spend exactly $200 and have no money left over. You could spend $187, but you would have money left over. All right, now you're going to do some practice. Okay, you're going to look at a problem. I'll read it for you so that you don't have to worry about the reading comprehension of it and the decoding of words. And then you will need to determine what information is important and continue the pattern to answer the problem. All right, so we are planning a cool school day to improve our school grounds. Our class is responsible for placing the mulch around the base of the trees. Now the mulch is the bark, chips, and such in the schoolyard to help hold moisture in the ground for the trees. We need to determine the number of buckets of mulch needed for the trees on the school grounds. One tree needs 3 buckets of mulch. One tree, 3 buckets of mulch. 2 trees then would need another 3 buckets of mulch. It would be 6, and so on. So continue writing a rule to show how many buckets of mulch would be needed for 1 tree, 2 trees, 7 trees, 19 trees. Continuing that pattern to be able to tell how many buckets of mulch you would need in each case. Go ahead and press pause and do that with your partner now. All right, well, let's take a look here. Okay, so really it's the number of trees times 3. If you were looking from trees to buckets, if you're going buckets to buckets, then it would be plus 3. So depending on how you looked at this table, and either one is fine, doesn't matter which one you choose, one works more quickly than the others. The only difference, it's a bit more effective. So I'm going to use the times 3 rule because that is the one that's more effective and I prefer that. So then I would go 3 times 3, which would be 9, 4 times 3, which would be 12, 5 times 3, which would be 15, 6 times 3, which would be 18, and 7 times 3, which would be 21. The last one, so I don't have to count all the way up to 19. Otherwise, that would take you quite a long time. You'd have to extend your table. 19 times 3, and I don't know that off the top of my head, so I'm going to use my calculator, and you're welcome to do the same thing, is 57. Okay, so notice there isn't a continuing. You can't just add 3 here because it's jumping all the way from 7 to 19. You can only do the adding 3 rule as long as it's going up by 1 interval. 1 set or 1 tree each time would mean more buckets. But here we're jumping from 7 to 19, so we can't just add 3. It doesn't work. So for 1 tree, we can see that we're going to need 3 buckets for 1A. For 2 trees, we're going to need 6 buckets. For 1C, for 7 trees, we're going to need 21 buckets. And lastly, for 1D, make that look like a D, seek to be understood. 19 trees we would need. Maybe I'll erase just to make that clearer. We would need 57 buckets. So we've used our rule and our T-table in order to solve the problem about how many buckets we would need. All right, we have one more to take a look at. Here we have Canada's Food Guide recommends the number of servings each day for children aged 9 to 13. That would be you. So from the fruits and vegetables group, you should be having up to 6 servings. And I think a serving is usually about the size of your fist. Grain products, you should have 6 servings. Milk and alternatives, 3 to 4 servings. And meat and alternatives, 1 to 2 servings. So we are now going to create a table to show how many servings are recommended for 1 week for each food group. The first one is done for you. So vegetables, 1 week. First day we need 6, 2 days we need 12, 3 days we need 18, 4 days we need 24, 5 days we need 30. And what you're seeing happening here, depending on which way you're looking at it, number of days to number of servings, we are in fact timesing by 6, multiplying by 6 here. If you are going from number of servings to number of servings, we are adding 6. Now, you need to do the same thing for grain products. Actually, grain products is going to be the same, so we're not going to do grain products. But you are going to do the same thing for milk and alternatives and for meat and alternatives to determine how many you would need in a week. So press pause and create those tables and rules in order to assist you with solving this problem. Go ahead and do that with your partners. All right, so I've created my tea table. I've clearly labeled it, number of days and number of milk servings. I'm going to go with the lower number. I'm going to go with the 3. And we need up to 7 days. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I know with the first day I need 3. So I'm going to go across my tea table. And each day I need 3 more. So I'm really multiplying by 3. 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 3 is 12, 5 times 3 is 15, 6 times 3 is 18, and 7 times 3 is 21. I could really just have gone 7 times 3. If I wanted 4 servings, it would be the same thing, except I would be multiplying by 4 all the way here as opposed to 3. And then it would be 7 times 4 as my final one, which would be 28. So depending on which number of servings you chose, 4 or 3, you would get either 21 or 28 servings after after 7 days. All right, now I've created my second tea table for your 1D, number of days again, and number of servings. And again, I'm going to have my 7 days. This time, I'm going to choose to use my servings and keep adding on each time. So I'm going to go with 2 servings this time. 1 and 2. 2 would be 2 more. 4, 2 more. 6. Add 2 more would be 8 for 4 days. 5 days would be 2 more, which is 10. 6 would be 2 more, which is 12. And 7 would be 2 more, which is 14. Now, to confirm or double check, I could use my across rule to help me. I'm noticing that I'm multiplying by 2 each time, so 7 times 2 should equal 14, which it does, and I'm good to go. 1 serving per each would have been really easy. It's just 1 per day, so that's not overly challenging. If you chose to just go with 1, it doesn't really help you understand the patterning concept. So pick 2. Challenge yourself. All right, now you are on to your concept practice. Page 11, numbers 1, 2, 3, and 5, using patterns to solve problems. As always, I expect you to show all your work, demonstrate your evidence of thinking, seek to be understood, be very clear in how you answer your work and do your work. Make sure that if you have any questions, you seek to understand by asking. Away you go.